Hope.
Hey, happy Friday, Curtis. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Hope. How's your Friday treating you? It's raining over here. How's the weather over there?
It's not raining yet, but it's Florida. So give us a few minutes and it might be raining.
Yep. We were at the pool and the beach on our first family vacation post adoption. Yeah,
All
let's
right.
go. And every day one of the kids asked, "Is it going to rain today?" And I had to explain it's Florida. So probably for like 15, 30 seconds, and it's going to be bright and then hot and then rain again. So it's just that Florida life. It's just what we're used to.
And that's why it's nice living in Florida because you can just go inside and come back out in a few minutes when it's not raining anymore. Uh, we don't have to fly here. We're already here. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
love Florida.
it's hot as a certain word right now. Hope
Yeah.
this heat is no joke. Global warming. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but I just went on a 5K and that was tough. That was tough.
Well, 5K at noon. So may not be the coolest part of the day to go running.
That's true. Thank you, Hope. Good advice. Good advice. I see we got Miss Deborah Stanley is on Facebook checking in
Well,
with us.
hi. Hi,
We were
Deborah.
we were going to Hope do a highlight and showcase Project Bridge today, a program that's very near dear to heart,
Yes.
inspired much of our professional journey. But for the sake of some logistics, we decided to do that one next Friday instead.
Yep.
So, Deborah, if you were planning on joining us for that, we would definitely love for you to join us next Friday. Reach out to me. Reach out to me directly, and we'll make that happen. But we're going to do the Project Bridge one next week, so we got something a little different in store for today.
But hi, Deborah. I missed you.
Yes, we always miss you, Miss Deborah. Hope, before we get started in a little special treat of what we have for today, talk to me about how it went at the prison. Last time we
So,
spoke, we had to do the live stream in the middle of the week because you had some exciting things planned. Talk to me about how that went.
yeah. So if you are just joining us, I could not join the live stream last Friday because I went to prison. And that sentence has gotten me in trouble a few times. But what I did was I went there to speak and work with some women as their keynote, and it was the Lowell's Correctional Institute in Ocala. They have about 2,400 women on site, and Curtis, it was truly a moving experience from the moment I walked in until the time I left. It's there really are no words to describe what it's like to go behind the barbed wire. I know a lot of times people only know as much as they get from TV or movies, and it's, kind of the Hollywood edition, but these are real women with real lives, with real personalities, with real families. And what I noticed a lot is most of the women, at least the women that I got to see, and I got to see about 150 to 200, it was quite a lot of women. They were happy, peaceful, content, away from a lot of the struggles that they might see on the streets, in their homes and their communities. Very youthful, I would say. It was very interesting, because I've been in the men's prison quite a lot. So this was a little different going into the women's prison. But what I noticed is just overwhelming peace. It was really interesting. They just weren't around those things that, the crime, the violence, and their minds are really free to be themselves. So, and these women, I want to add, they are the ones that are going through classes and being rehabilitated. So all of these women have gone through a lot of classes, and that's what this event was for a graduation.
Yeah, Hope, and I want to find the picture. I'm pulling up your LinkedIn now because I thought it was such a cool picture and I wanted to show it. Okay, here it is. Let me go ahead and put this on the screen. Because when I saw this, I was like, wow, you're really making a difference, Hope.
Oh, thank you.
We talk about impacting people, but you're doing it. Here it is right here, Hope. You want to tell me a little bit about this picture?
Yeah, so there were probably about 100 additional women other than the ones in this picture that are part of the program, but they just weren't graduating. These women have gone through, I think it's at least a year of really hardcore programming, trying to help build their resilience, build their character to where they really have to get really vulnerable with one another, very vulnerable with themselves. They have to really dig deep and find their accountability in the issues that they have had and what led them to prison. So over the past year, these ladies have been digging deep, getting vulnerable, sharing their hearts, sharing their stories. And some of them did this at this event. They were able to share their childhoods, the abuse, the neglect. They were able to share what led them into the life of crime. But more importantly, since they have been away from all of that, they have been able to share how their minds have really sobered up and clarified, just really, it was really beautiful. There were smiles, there were laughs, there were tears. And, some of these women, they're young in their 20s and some are in their 60s and 70s. It's just a full range. So I had a really great time getting to meet them. I would have loved, and in fact, I'm going back. I'm working on taking my books, trying to get 100 books to get to these women, going back and just spending a day with them, just spending the whole day with them and listening to their stories. And some of these women that you see in this picture are going to come home. They're going to be part of the reentry. And some of these women are serving multiple life sentences. So they're not going to see life outside of those barbed wires. But they have found a place within that to still develop themselves, still grow. And I really highly suggest anybody that has not visited a prison, that has not been able to go beyond the barbed wires, to see people beyond their inmate photo, beyond the number. I really highly suggest if you're able to do that. It is life-changing. It really is.
And if you already mentioned this, Hope, I apologize, but the yellow gowns, talk to me about what's happening there.
So these ladies graduated their program, and I don't know why they chose yellow. I think they just chose yellow because it's a happy color. It's not necessarily the color of their program, but they chose yellow, and I really liked it because their uniforms are all the same color. They're all blue. So this is really their only opportunity, I think, at all to see a little bit of color. And they chose yellow. And I saw it as growth. I saw it as happiness. I think of sunshine. When they walked out in their caps and their gowns, I thought of sunshine, like literal sunshine in a very, very dark place. So they were very happy about this. It was truly amazing. And that lady, if you can see her in the middle wearing the black shirt and the blue pants, that is Miss Silviana. And she actually worked with Project Bridge for a little while, which is how she connected me. So she is in charge of the program that these ladies graduated from, Horizons. And she's changing lives every single day. So kudos to her, because she goes beyond that barbed wire every day, works with these women plus others, works through the smiles and the tears and all of that to bring them to where they are here in this picture.
And what I love about this picture, Hope, is that if you took away the caption and like the context and you just saw the image, all you would think about is joy and success. Yes. And the smiles on their face, So that's a really impactful image, Hope. Kudos to you again for doing all the work you're doing on that side of the side of helping others. So let's talk about what we're going to do here today, Hope. Like we talked about earlier, we had an original plan to talk about Project Bridge, a program that has inspired you, inspired me, really helped shape our professional journey. But for some logistical reasons, we pushed that off to next Friday. So you and I were kind of scrambling at the last second saying, okay, what's going to be the focus here for this episode? Because we got to still do it every Friday, Hope. If not, the algorithm's going to be like, oh, they're done. Forget about them. So we got to keep this thing rolling. So here's what I did, Hope. And I didn't really give you too much feed or context on this. Let me pull up. Here we are, Hope. What I did is I took your bio from LinkedIn, and then I took my bio from LinkedIn, and I plugged it in to ChatGPT, and I said, hey, come up with some questions that we could do rapid fire on Friday and randomly speak to what the topics are that come up on this wheel. I don't know. Aside from me just quickly copying and pasting on here, I haven't really looked at these at all. Hope you haven't got a chance to see them at all.
Yeah,
so we're just going to do a little rapid fire, Hope. Do you want to go first? Do you want to be the one to try out the wheel? We'll give you the first question.
Go ahead and do it.
And for those watching, if you have a random question that you want to challenge either Hope or myself to answer on the spot, I would love to hear it. Hope, all right, you ready for the first one?
I'm ready. Let's see what happens.
Dun, 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 dun. If you could go back to your group home worker days, what would you tell yourself? So the very first time you worked in a residential or a group home, Hope, I know you have experience in the residential side. If you could take a time machine and go back to that person, what would you tell them before you started your very first day there? Talk to me, Hope.
So I love this question, Curtis. And I remember my very first day in residential. When I walked in, I didn't have a cape on my back, but I thought I was going to go in there and I thought I was going to save every single one of those young ladies. And just for a little context, it was a residential level 6, 8, and 10 for high-risk juvenile offenders, a female program. So I literally thought I was going to go in and save everybody. And as I was going through the doors on my first morning, one of the, I guess you would call him a seasoned employee, one of the oldest guys there, but a leader, he walked through the door coming off shift and he said, hey, I know that look. If you think you're going to come in here and you're going to save them, then you're wrong. Clock in, clock out, go home, do your job, do that, and don't worry about anything else because you're not going to change anybody. You're not going to save anybody. And at the time, there I was, my first day, there he was close to his last days. I had a mix of emotions, fear, a little bit of fear because I didn't know what he was talking about, a little bit of confusion. And then I'm a little feisty. So if somebody tells me I can't do something, typically I dig my feet in and I am even more determined. So I was also a little mad. How dare he tell me I can't change lives, right? But I remember having those emotions, and that was a pivotal moment because in that moment I could have believed him. I could have let my mind really go in that direction and believed him and went in and checked boxes, clocked in, checked boxes and went home. But I didn't do that. And I'm not going to say every day was easy. There were very hard days, but I refused to listen to that. So I think I would go back to that first day and stand beside myself. And as he said that, I think I would say, you know what, stay the course. Do what you came here to do. Give it your all. You may not see it right away, but you are going to change lives because I think I did a study that in the period of a lifetime, if we live 79.4 years, Curtis, which is the typical lifespan for 2025, that we influence a minimum of 80,000 people in our lives. And if we're extroverts, we may influence up to 100,000. So with that influence comes opportunity. We're either going to influence in a positive way or a negative. So why not choose to stay the course for the positive, change the lives? And I know we can't change anybody, but your influence can influence change. So I would tell myself, stay the course, don't listen, dig your heels in, and give it your all. You may not see it right away, but it does have an effect, and you're going to see it, and it's going to outlive you.
I love that, Hope. Well said. And I'm not even going to try to follow up that answer. So yeah, let's leave it there. Let's spin again. All right, here we go. Oh, and Josh Davies is in the building.
Hey, Josh
Davies says, spin the wheel. What could possibly go wrong?
Josh, you never know, because I'm not sure what these questions are, but we're gonna see. So I think everybody should stick around just to see if there's any uh-ohs.
Yeah. So. And just because ChatGPT, you know, I give it the prompt that make sure you're giving me questions that aren't going to give me in too much trouble. I just saw that one of the founders of ChatGPT came out and admitted that it hallucinates and can intentionally be wrong sometimes because, and essentially it says you should not trust it. So with that being said, let's see what the next question is, though. Yep. All right.
And Curtis says, as these questions come up, I would love for those in the chat to answer as well. Ooh, this is a good one.
How do you build trust with someone who's been failed by every system before you? What a question, Hope. And I'm sure you got a follow-up to this answer too. I think the very first thing you want to do is acknowledge and validate their feelings if they feel they've been failed or if they decide to not trust you initially. Don't take that personal. How that person feels, they have the right to feel it, especially if they've been let down many, many times. So try not to get too caught up with how their lack of trust impacts you, but rather control and focus on what you can control and what you can do to build trust and rapport. I think the microwave version of building trust and rapport is through compassion. If you can demonstrate a compassionate action with that person, you can meet them where they're at. You can immediately respond to a need. I remember when working with young people, if a young person says, hey, no one will hire me, you know what? Hey, get in the car right now. We're going to go talk to these managers together, right? Or, you know what? I don't have any food at the house. All right, let's get in the car. Let's go to the food shelter right now. You know, responding to that immediate need through an act of compassion can establish rapport. Empathy, obviously, just listen to the person's story. If they said they've been failed by every system before, ask them, well, you know, tell me about that. What's that been like? Kind of walk me through your experience up to this point. I want to hear from you. I want to learn from your experiences. I'm willing to listen. I don't think there's many things more powerful than a non-judgmental listener. So I think sometimes, Hope, when someone doesn't trust us, we're in this rush to prove that they should, whereas we just need to let them come to that conclusion when they're ready, and instead just try to practice some empathy, learn, listen, demonstrate compassion, be kind, and then eventually that trust will come. Trust is a funny thing, Hope. It could take forever to build, and then just a singular moment to cause it to come crashing down. So yeah, compassion, empathy, active listening, those are all some ways we could start laying the groundwork towards trust. And then make sure your expectations are aligned with reality. Just because you have a really good experience with someone or a good meeting or a strong week, the expectation shouldn't be, okay, now they're going to listen to me and they're going to believe everything I say. And we have this trust here. It's trust, I think, is this thing that constantly is built through the duration of that relationship. It's just not based off of one interaction. So that would be my guidance there for someone who's trying to establish trust and rapport early on. Hope, what do you think?
Well, I think you really covered pretty much most, if not all, of the bases. For me, when I think of trust, I think of all the things you said. But if I had to just say for me, what I've experienced is that trust comes when you show up, and you show up again, and you show up again. Most of the clients in the system that I've worked with, they are used to people making promises that they don't keep, or they're used to people, showing up for the initial part of whatever needs to happen and then not showing up again. So I have found that I've been able to build trust by doing all the things that you've just said, but by showing up and being consistent in showing up and having that line of communication open. Nothing, I think, destroys trust more than two things. For me anyways, is one is not showing up consistently. So, somebody who continuously cancels maybe meetings or doesn't show up with no, like a no call or no show, somebody who doesn't communicate, and then somebody who makes promises continuously that they just don't keep. So for me personally, I tried to always show up, communicate if things had to change, and then also never make promises. Usually what I would say is, this is what I'm going to try to do. I can't promise it, but this is what we are going to try to do together. And I would really emphasize, I'm not making a promise because I'm just not sure if we can do it, but we're going to try. So those are the things that really stand out to me with the relationships that I've been able to build. But I think a blend of what you've said and I've said really come together to make that difference as a whole.
Well said, Hope. Absolutely agree. All right, let's keep it moving. So far, nothing too dangerous yet, Hope. You're up next. Let's see what we got here.
It's always a little scary waiting for that wheel.
And in the comments, if you're listening, how do you build trust with the individuals you work with? What are some tips or tools you use to establish rapport early on, especially with someone who maybe has been failed by this system? All right, Hope, what's the biggest myth about motivational interviewing that still shows up in trainings?
Oh, this is a good one. And the first two that come to mind, the first is, I don't have time for that. So I hear a lot of people, well, I don't have time for all of that. We have a heavy caseload. You don't understand all of the things that we have to do. So that's the first myth, is showing people that motivational interviewing it's a culture. It's how you show up, really. So everything you do can be done in every interaction. Motivational interviewing can be shown in every interaction, whether it is a 5-minute interaction or a 2-hour interaction. The second is that you have to have some kind of long string of letters behind your name to do it. And that's just not true. Everybody from the CEO to the janitor needs to know the basis of motivational interviewing, just in general, on how to communicate just in life. So those are the two myths that I think of.
Yeah, the I don't have time one is that's been hearing that one for quite a bit. I think the other one is, I have to, or I'm not a psychologist, or I'm not a therapist, so I can't do this. I remember I did a MI training for a workforce team, and the person raised their hand and they go, well, I didn't sign up to be a therapist, so I'm not sure if this is something that's going to be for me. And in the spirit of motivational interviewing, all I did is I said, well, talk to me about that. What do you mean, like, you didn't sign up to be a therapist? And she goes, see, that's what I'm talking about right there. You should have just answered my question, and instead you gave me a question back. I was like, yes, I wanted clarification. I wanted to demonstrate understanding. So yeah, the idea that you have to sit in this nice, quiet office, and you're on this couch, or they're on this couch, and they're talking about their whole life story, and you have to be perfect in reflections. It's just not true. And the thing I like about motivational interviewing so much is it's so situational, meaning you can apply some elements of it.
Yep.
That you don't have to, it's not like you have to follow all of these steps and be in this ideal scenario in order for it to be effective, So you really just got to pull from which parts of MI make the most sense to match this person's readiness change in real time. But yeah, I don't have time. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. Or people, sometimes they'll reach out and say, hey, can you teach me how to use this on people?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
and that's a problem because it might work in the beginning a little, but as soon as someone feels like you're trying to manipulate them or trick them, it doesn't matter how good you use it. It's over, because it goes back to the question we asked before. If the trust isn't there, it just doesn't matter. So do not use motivational interviewing as a weapon. It is you use it with people to help people on their journey. So,
and Curtis, when you're talking, I think of a specific circumstance. I was in an airport where my flight had been delayed, I think about 10 hours because of storms. And in that, my luggage went in one direction and I went in another. So I ended up in the luggage place when I finally got to the airport that I was supposed to fly into. And right in front of me, and it's probably 1 o'clock in the morning. So I was ready to go home. I was tired. There was a lady in front of me and she was screaming, just giving the poor clerk behind the desk the hardest time. And I remember thinking, I was tired, I was frustrated, and I wanted to say something to her, but I thought, I can't respond right now in an ugly way. So I need to figure out a way to alleviate the situation, because this clerk is just not qualified or doesn't know how. So I just kind of waited for her to pause. And I made a simple statement, like, I know it's very frustrating losing your luggage. It's something around that, where the clerk was not doing that. The clerk was making excuses. Mm-hmm. And so by doing that, the lady immediately took a breath, calmed down, and said, yes. And then she proceeded to just talk calmly. And when I say it doesn't take a long time, it was literally that quick. And then the clerk was quick enough to figure out, oh, that worked. So they, the whole situation was really de-escalated in a matter of moments, and it was not anywhere going in that direction until that one simple statement. So motivational interviewing really doesn't have to be more than sometimes a simple statement.
Agreed. And with MI for de-escalation, most of the time people, they keep escalating and it keeps getting higher and higher and higher because they don't feel heard.
Right.
They don't feel listened to. They don't feel that their feelings are being empathized with or even sympathized with to a certain extent. So if you just reflect back or add a little empathy or validate their feelings, then that element that they're not being heard, that comes down. Maybe the situation won't be solved completely, but they'll de-escalate off of that, at least I'm not feeling heard space, which can get us back onto a more calm conversation for sure. All right, let's keep it moving, Hope. My LinkedIn crew, I'm working with StreamYard on this, but still LinkedIn does not show me who's on LinkedIn watching and does not let me put comments to LinkedIn in real time. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, give Hope and I a question that you think maybe we won't answer.
See, you're getting brave there, Curtis.
Because we might not, but hey, you can give it a shot. Okay. And then I gotta put that caveat, Hope, because we might not. That's why, Hope. Let's. But those on LinkedIn, show us some love in the comments. Let us know you're there, and let's go to the next question. Hope, was that last one for you or for me?
I think it's your turn to answer first now. I think it is. Let's
see what we got here. Should AI generate case plans or just coffee orders? Well, first of all, I don't know who's using AI to generate their coffee order. I know, Hope, you would never, ever, ever allow that. But I just got done with a workshop at the Wrap Around the World conference where I did a workshop on AI for case management and how case managers can use AI to help with some of the time-consuming tasks. So, yes, I absolutely think AI can help generate case plans, case summaries, help create life skill worksheets, activities, help more efficiently create an actionable steps towards completing that plan for sure. Now, as I mentioned earlier on when we were talking about AI, the founder of ChatGPT acknowledged that AI can get it wrong, does get it wrong, and sometimes hallucinates. And I asked ChatGPT this. I said, hey, do you know that your founder said you're hallucinating? What's that about? And it said, yes, I can, but I still want to let you know, Curtis, that you have great ideas. I was like, wait a minute. Is that a hallucination, or do you really think I'm adding some value here? So the point is, you can let it generate case plans. You can let it make some of these admin parts of your job a little more efficient, but you have to double check it, and you cannot let it take away your creativity and the human nature of the work that you do. So I think a really good thing would say, hey, I have Johnny. He wants to attend trade school, but he doesn't have his GED and is a little hesitant about attending school because his previous experiences were not positive. We're local to the Hillsborough County area and kind of searching for some potential resources and ideas that can get his confidence up. What would a case plan look like for this scenario? And that can give you a good foundation and starting point. And then you get in there and you use your case management skills, your social work skills, and ask open-ended questions and add your input. And you're using it just like any other tool. The tool can't do the work for you or should not do the work for you. Because in real time, when you're working with that young person or that client, you're not going to have AI sitting on the couch with you. Not yet, at least. It looks like we're trending towards that area, Hope, but not yet. Not yet. But I do absolutely agree that AI should help our support staff, our helping professions, our case managers, those working in juvenile justice, foster care, workforce, because it is a field that people are overwhelmed. There are constant staffing issues. They are high stress, high anxiety positions. You're working with people who are being hurt, in some cases being abused. So the more you can use AI to address the time-consuming tasks, the admin-related tasks, so that you as the person could then put more of your time into the other person you're working with, I think there is for sure some value to that. Hope you have some thoughts on the AI coffee order versus case plan argument.
So I have only used AI, I want to say, to generate pictures of my cat as a cartoon character. So I know people are probably laughing at me. However, I am one of those minds. I like to think for myself. However, I have been looking into it, and I do think that if it can help support, if it can help inspire, and if it can help guide. However, I am 100% behind using it as a guidance and an inspiration, but not letting it do the work for you, because for one, it does take away, like you just said, sometimes it may not be right. It needs that person perspective to really kind of say, hey, this part is good, this part is not. Let me take this part and see how this part works. So just not using it as a cookie cutter, check the box, lazy way out, but for support, inspiration, and guidance, I think it's fine. Now, as far as the coffee, I'd be willing to give it a chance, but I can't promise I would go with it. So
yeah, and if you run a program or you're a leader in your program and your mentality is, hey, I don't want my team to have this because I think they'll just end up using it to do their work for them, or it could create problems. I remember that same argument was made, Hope, back in our day when they first rolled out templates for notes.
Yeah. Yep.
Remember? And the idea was, well, I don't want them to use this template because then they'll just plug in the template. And like with anything, you had some staff that did that. But then you had other staff that were able to use it as the foundation and still made those case notes unique. And it freed up time for them to be able to spend more time with the individuals they're helping. Yeah. So it's the same thing. But even bigger than, you can kind of ignore the templates and just not provide the templates to your team. You're not ignoring AI. It's here. It's going to be used. It's going to continue to get even more. I don't know if the right word is smart. I don't know, for lack of a better word, but it's not going anywhere. So make sure your team has training related to this. They have access to it. They know how to use it. don't get too caught up in the people who take advantage of it, because that's going to happen in any type of new tool that's rolled out. Use it as a way to say, okay, I'm going to give my people more time to help people and do the parts of the job that they love. And there's a lot of value in that. All right, Hope, you are up next. You ready? I still think we've been getting some really safe questions. So let's keep it rolling.
Let's see what happens next.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Why does we don't have the funding always win the argument, or is always the go-to argument when we're talking about either not establishing a new program or potentially seeing one go away?
I love this question. And I'm going to say, I do not think that we do not have the funding wins the argument. I do not think it has to win the argument. Curtis, from just our work in Project Bridge, and then probably any work you did before and that I did before, is there are often a lot of barriers when it comes to working with people with barriers. I used to say, hey, we're being told to go build a house, but not given all the supplies to do so. So let's go build the house, right? We still have to build the house. We have to use the resources we have. But it doesn't mean we can't, one, have a successful house built, and two, find the funding, because there are funders out there. So I would challenge this question. I do not think that it wins the argument. I think that if you are in an organization that serves anybody, funding does not have to be a barrier to having successful outcomes. And two, if you don't have the funding, find it. And it may be for small things. I will never forget. I was just thinking about this today, thinking about our first leadership event. When we wanted to do leadership, we did not have, that I'm aware of, right, the funding to put on this event. So what did we do? We turned to our community. We shared a heart story, and we had a list of what we needed, and we asked for them. And Curtis, I remember every single time I asked, guess what? People showed up. They turned up, whether it was for the tablecloths, whether it's for centerpieces, whether it was for food. So I think this is a poor argument. I think anybody using this argument as an excuse is really, one, they just aren't aware that there are ways, or two, kind of taking that easy way out. I don't like this argument at all. I think it can still be done well, and even new programs created. And then when you find a way to do it, the funding follows.
I agree. When I hear this, I always think, why not? Why don't we have it? Who has it then?
Where's the money?
Yeah,
show me the money.
It's going somewhere. Who made that decision? How's that going? Like, who do we need to talk to? So yeah, I think this is just one of those statements that's allows you to move on and try to shut the argument down. But that's not good enough. I co-sign everything you just said.
No, that topic right there will get me fired up for an hour. So we should keep going.
All right, let's do some rapid fire, Hope. Let's see how many we can get done in about 5 minutes. Let's go about 1 minute each. Can you inspire change without ever giving advice? Yes, absolutely. In fact, most people already know the solution. Most people already know the answer. So what you're not giving advice. You're trying to inspire them to believe that they can carry out the solutions they already know are there. So absolutely, if you find yourself giving someone advice within 1 minute of hearing the problem, you're probably not solving the actual problem, which is more likely a lack of commitment, a lack of motivation, maybe a belief that you can't actually be successful. So yes, I think you can inspire change without giving advice. Hope, you're up.
All right.
Uh-oh. Do we write case notes for the client or for the audit?
Ooh, and I'm going to say both.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is, if you have any experience in the work that we do, then one, you should know what the auditors are looking for. They're looking for the required outcomes of the deliverables that you're supposed to be delivering. So how do we do both? We deliver to the client. So when you are able to deliver to the client, then you can write the case note that is going to satisfy both the client and the audit. You're not doing one or the other. You should be doing both. And if you're just writing for the audit, but you're not satisfying for the client, then there's a gap. And if you are only writing for the client, but not satisfying for the audit, you may not have a program to serve the client. So definitely both. Look at the deliverables of what's supposed to be met, because that's what the auditors are looking for. Deliver, over deliver to the client. Make sure you document it well, and you're doing both jobs.
Absolutely. And I'll go back to AI on this. AI can help a lot with this. Let AI know what your outcomes are. Some of the areas that your auditor or your QI will look for, get those in the case notes. I agree, Hope. I agree. All right.
I saw Anna say both. So, yep, absolutely.
Anna's not playing around with that one. She knows
Nope.
better than most the importance of that.
Yep.
All right. Should case managers be allowed to go viral for venting about their caseload?
Ooh.
Okay. Do case managers go viral for venting about? They do, Hope? Okay.
TikTok.
Oh, it's TikTok. Okay. My thing on this is do not complain if you don't have a potential solution to help with your complaint. Those that just get on there to complain and stir people up and get them upset and get people on there who disagree, and others that, yeah, life does suck, but you're not providing some sort of solution, that drives me crazy. So if you want to get on to the TikToks, as us old people like to call it, Hope didn't look at me like that. If you want to get on there and make a call to action or bring awareness to a particular issue, and you're not crossing any lines related to confidentiality or HIPAA, then do it if your goal is to spark some solutions. I do it. I have done it. Now, I didn't do it on TikTok, I don't believe, but I absolutely will identify potential areas that need to be improved with our systems and try to call attention to it, as long as I also pair those with some opportunities for us to move forward and some solutions as well. So if you're just up there venting to get clicks and drive that ad revenue, but you're not giving us some path forward, that's a little annoying. But if you're doing it intentionally to spark action, I think that's one of the beautiful things about social media. Hope, what do you think?
I would add a caveat to that.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure there's not a policy that you are violating with your job, because people have been known to lose their jobs for doing such. So I just want to add that caveat that make sure if you're going to do it, don't violate, what Curtis said, the HIPAA and all of that, but also check your organizational policy. And then also, just for the sake of morals, don't bring up problems that you're not really looking for a solution for.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole point of what we're doing with Aware, right? Ask why and require everyone. We're looking for solutions. Problems, there's no end to. We need solutions. So
yeah,
that's
anyone can point out the problem.
Yes.
Like, that's easy. You don't need any real understanding of a situation to identify a problem with it. Now to identify solutions, you actually have to take a deep dive into what's happening. But I do agree with your point, Hope. Make sure you're good to talk about it, because I'm speaking, and so are you, speaking from a place where we work for ourselves. So we don't necessarily have to be as attentive to that. But yeah, if you're working for a company and you're talking about that, what's wrong with the company, you might want to address that with your company first before, but to each his own, we all learn.
And Curtis, people are shocked when HR calls them for the write-up or to let them go when they do this. So, don't let Curtis or Hope tell you to go do that.
Hope, what does motivating change look like on a Tuesday when nothing's going right? Okay,
Oh,
AI gave you a vague one there. What do you think?
well, you know what I think of? I think of days in my early, well, not just early, but Project Bridge days where you set out, right? You get in the car, you think you have your day planned, you think you have the agenda, you think you know what's going to happen, and then you just hit a wall every single direction you're going. There are a couple of things with that. If it's with a client, sometimes taking a break, stepping away from whatever's not going right. What I would used to do, and this is unique to everybody, right? What I used to do is say, hey, want to go grab a coffee. We can't make any change right now. We can't fix this right now. Let's go grab a coffee and just get our mind off of it. And a lot of times in that time of being outside of the situation, looking at something different, letting the guard down, solutions were found. So, and I do that myself just for my personal life. Like if something's not going right in my business, I go for a walk, go grab a coffee, get my mind, change the environment, change the scenario a little bit. That way your mind is more free to think of solutions.
Agree. Yeah, if nothing's going right, go seek out something that is. Like I remember when we worked together, Hope, there would be some days where I had 5 interactions with people or places or phone calls that were all straight up negative, and my day was driving me crazy. I would almost always then call you, Hope, because I knew you would be some sort of positivity. Hey, what do we got going on? Let me tell you about this success story over here. So go seek out the things that are going right if it feels like nothing is. Because if it's like that whole if it rains it pours mentality, as soon as you give yourself that mindset that this is just one of those days, your brain is then going to point out and notice all the things that contribute to that narrative. So you got to stop that, kind of do a hard reset and go find some positive. Let's
absolutely
try another one.
I kind of like this. I kind of like this style, Curtis. These random questions. I like it.
I think we need to be more intentional with our questions next time. Let's see. Okay, what's a law that's hurting more than it's helping? Ooh, now we're getting deep. How real do we want to get with this question, Hope?
I think it has a huge level of perspective. Different people have a different view of hurt and help. And sometimes the very thing helping one person could be hurting another. So I think it's just really vague and it's really hard to answer outside of your own personal perspective.
Yeah. I think let me pivot to the child welfare system. I would kind of twist this question and not necessarily say what law that's hurting more than it's helping. I would say what lack of laws are hurting more than it's helping. I think we really need to give our professionals in the child welfare system more laws to lean on that'll allow them to work more efficiently and quicker to get kids out of the system and in limbo. I think a lack of clarity with some of our laws and statutes in the foster care system allows people to do the bare minimum or express interest that's not really interest, and then ultimately delay permanency and things like that. So I think, and this is actually, spoiler alert for you, Hope, this is something I'm working on right now. I'm working on a bill that I can then propose to Tallahassee, hopefully our governor, who's been signing things left and right, to try to give our adoption agencies more leverage without being so concerned that the vagueness of some of our statutes can be exploited and used against them. Give them more leverage to lean on and say, hey, here's the direction we're going with this case. We have legal authority to go in this direction. This kid deserves to be out of the system. Let's get stability and let's get placement. So, and this is actually one of those areas where I think more laws can help our teams and most importantly, help our kids. So that's what comes to mind on this one, Hope. Any thoughts on that?
That's a good answer. And I'm just going to go with you on that one because in that case, I would agree.
All right. Let's see what we got. Hope we got about 5 more minutes here. What's the most creative solution you've seen in a high-risk youth program? One of the most creative solutions that you've seen innovative in one of the high-risk programs that you've worked in.
Ooh, see,
That's a good one too, huh?
this is a good one because
I know what I want you to say, but I'm going to see what you're going to say.
Tell me what you want me to say.
I'm not going to do it. I want to hear your answer first.
So the most creative solution in a high-risk youth program. So I love creativity. In fact, if you tell me something can't be done, I am going. That just my personality is to find an answer, right? It's hard to answer this, Curtis, because with
you want me to give you mine?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
What is our favorite idea or outside of the box solution we did with Project Bridge?
Well, if you were about to say leadership, I was about to say, okay, that's what I was about to say is, and I was actually going to talk about this when we talk about our Project Bridge days, but for those of you that don't know, Curtis and I have worked with Project Bridge, and what Project Bridge did was when at-risk, high-risk juveniles were in facilities throughout the state of Florida, they would be released back into their community, and we would work to transition them back by filling the gaps with education, community service, job skills, job placement, mentoring. So some very important things. And if you've ever worked with any juvenile that's in a high-risk situation, a lot of times people look at them, at least from what I see, they look at these young people as they're hard to reach. They are hard to find success. So let's go ahead and check boxes. So I will never forget the night. It was actually an evening. I was sitting at my computer late at night. It might have been 10 o'clock on a weeknight. And Curtis sent an email out saying, hey, what do you guys think about starting some kind of leadership thing? And I was like, yes. And then I think I had like 10 ideas I shot back about what could be the requirements of what, would constitute as leadership. And from that, it kicked off. And it started as a potluck in a tiny little room with a leak in the ceiling, dressing, as best we could and getting whatever supplies we could. And it has progressed over the past decade to being hosted in some of the most beautiful locations throughout Central and in some cases, a different version of that, South Florida. So I would say that is one of my favorite creative solutions that we found. And it met all of the deliverables. So Curtis, remember the question that asked about, do we write the case note for the audit or the client? Mm-hmm. You do both. So in doing the leadership, we were able to wrap in all deliverables that were required, make it a part of leadership, and empower those youth to greatness. So that's my favorite, I think.
Yeah, that's immediately what came to mind for me. That's when you talk about legacy, that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, Hope. Man, those were the good old days.
Yeah. I'll never forget that, Curtis. I remember sitting at my computer and getting that email and thinking, I don't know who this guy is, but I love it. I love this idea. Oh, I like
it. Even though it's my turn, I feel like this is your question here. This is, what if resiliency was taught in schools the same way math is? And I'm going to give this to you here in a second, Hope. All I'm going to say to this is yes, please. And why? And speaking of this, why is it critical thinking? There's a more emphasis on that as well. Strategic empathy. There's a lot we could be adding to our curriculums here to getting our young people to be thinkers, especially in this day and age with AI. Like, you have to be able to think beyond your initial reaction and know how to ask questions. So resiliency for sure. I couldn't imagine, Hope, what it would be like to be a young person this day and age. I made some mistakes that if social media was around, I don't know. I don't know what I'd be doing right now. So yes, resiliency. What if it was? I think it would be amazing, Hope. But I'm going to pass this one to you, since resiliency, I know, is a passion for you.
Right. So if you are joining us and you don't know what I do, I train trauma-informed care and resiliency. And within the elements of resiliency, I have developed 10 core elements that help people bounce back, right? We can't take away people's trauma. We can't undo what's been done, but we want to help them bounce back and grow forward. And so in that, I have created 10 elements of resiliency. And those elements are specifically designed to help people overcome the trauma, overcome adversity, and grow forward. So if we can teach our kids that from an early age, it makes all the difference. Resiliency, the elements of resiliency, not what resiliency is, but cultivating resiliency within people makes all the difference. And I'm going to tell you this, Curtis, I think it's probably more important than math. If our young people are learning how to be resilient, they're going to learn how to do the math. They go hand in hand. 2 weeks ago, I was training a group of middle school and high school students, and one of the elements of resiliency that I have and that I train is purpose. And in this group of kids, I asked a few questions. One of the questions is, what is purpose? Nobody raised their hand because nobody knew. When I asked what their purpose was, they looked around, they looked confused, they didn't know. When I asked, had anybody ever told them they had a purpose, they looked around and they looked down, because these kids made it all the way to middle school, and a few of the kids were going in high school, and nobody had ever told them that they had purpose. They were just floating through life, and that's not okay. We don't need to know what our purpose is. We need to have a sense of purpose, because that's going to keep us going in those hard times. So I love this question. I think resiliency curriculum should be taught in every single school, elementary age and up.
Agree. And I think there are elements at schools that do teach. Sports are a great example, right? When you sports are almost one of my favorite examples, because it teaches you how to be a winner, but then it also teaches you what to do when you lose, how you feel when you're about to give up, what you're thinking that ultimately tips a balance if you do give up or not. Like, these are all some things I think sports does a really great job of doing. But having a curriculum in school for those individuals that don't necessarily engage in sports, I think that would be a great idea. Hope, it looks like we're at 58 minutes and 30 seconds. So let's see if we can get maybe two more in before we wrap this thing up.
All right.
What's the biggest difference between serving and truly seeing someone? Wow, that's a deep question. Hope, whose turn is it here?
I don't know.
I'll just go. I think you got to do both. So when I see truly seeing someone, obviously the first term that comes to mind for me is empathy. You're stepping into their worldview. You're trying to understand what their perspective is. But if you just stop there and do nothing else, are we really acting upon it? In any program or agency or wherever you work, there are outcomes tied to that. So you also want to serve those individuals you help with. But can you serve them effectively if you're not truly seeing what the world looks like from their perspective? I think it's going to be hard. So ideally, you want to have a combination of those two. I think the biggest difference is, let's say someone is homeless and you say, you know what, we need to get you somewhere safe to sleep tonight. You're providing that service. Now, the trauma associated with their homelessness, what they feel needs to happen, or what their current self-worth is, or where do they feel they're going from here, or what do they think they could do about their future? In order to answer those questions, you have to truly see them and step into their worldview. So I think serving them is great. And sometimes you got to start with the service before you can necessarily jump fully into the seeing someone. Sometimes you got to jump first into the understanding before you can go into solving potential issues. And when I think of seeing someone, I think that has a better chance of leading to some more sustainable change long term, where sometimes you immediately need to provide a service because those immediate needs aren't being met. So I think anyone in the helping profession is constantly trying to balance between these two, but I think definitely both are needed in order to truly help people. Your thoughts?
I think you said it very well. I'm not sure it could be said better. I like it.
All right, thank you, Hope. Let's do 2 more, Hope, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
All right. Huh. So, is it my turn? Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
so.
This is interesting. So this would be like the youth saying, "Hey, I don't want my probation officer at this case meeting, or I don't want my parent, or I don't want my case manager, or whatever." Like, what comes to mind when you see this question?
So I think what it's trying to ask is, what if youth had a say in who could be a part? Maybe that's what it's trying to ask. Obviously, there are people that have to be a part. But if they also had the opportunity to invite somebody that they wanted to be a part, I think that's what it's trying to say, is to give them a little, to empower them on, do they want their boss there? Do they want their neighbor? Has their neighbor been helping them out? Has their mentor been helping them out? Do they want somebody to help speak for them, or do they just want to show to somebody how well they've been doing? So I think the question is probably a little better served if it extends for the youth who they can have present if they choose to have somebody else present. And in that case, I think it's empowering.
Yeah, this is a really fascinating question, because when you think youth too, what age are we talking about? What's the context of the case meeting? Like when I think of the child welfare system and they're talking about, potential placements, should the child have a say in where that placement they're going to be? I think that's a very nuanced question, because there's a lot of factors that go into that as well. I think just overall, our opinion is that the individuals who have to ultimately carry out the change or have a significant impact on the success of that case plan, they should have say or some autonomy in building that out, or at least being able to advocate for what's occurring in those type of meetings when appropriate. So it's kind of a vague question without understanding additional context, but anytime you can have as many parties as possible that are invested in that outcome as part of that discussion, I think there's some value in that for sure. So let's go to our last one, Hope. Last question of the day. I did enjoy this.
Yeah. I actually like this, Curtis. I think we should do this like a
little segment
once a month or something.
Could be like a segment at the end of each episode.
Oh yeah.
Last questions. What would happen if we focused on strengths instead of statistics? Hope, and I see you nodding your head and smiling a little bit on this one. I'll let you take it away.
Oh, you can. You can.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Again, and I hate to be Switzerland on this, but you need both. you need both. So you have to have the ability to say, all right, what are the successes and the wins that you can't necessarily see in the numbers? Like Job Corps is a really good example of that, right? The student who had a roof over his head and somewhere safe to be, as opposed to being in a situation where he was scared that gang members would come to his house. There's not necessarily a statistic that says made you feel safe. You know what I mean? 80% of the kids who were here now they feel safe. So I think you have to be able to focus on the person element, the small wins. Again, another good example is when we used to help with employment. Maybe that young person didn't secure that job, but they had the confidence to go to that interview. And because they had the confidence to go to that interview, that they now have renewed confidence to go to another one. And potentially that outcome of getting that job won't reflect positively in the statistics for that quarter, but the next quarter, maybe it will, right? So, but on the other hand, you can't just have, all right, let me tell you about how this program makes people feel, and let me tell you this one anecdotal evidence of why we work, whereas the data is saying, wait a minute, you know, the large impact you're having is just not, it's not there when comparing that to the investment we're putting in, whether it be funding or whatever it is. So you need both. You need to highlight the successes. You need to tell success stories. You need to celebrate those small wins. But then you also need to have statistics that show we're actually making a difference in the areas and the outcomes that we said we would when you gave us the opportunity to run whatever program we're running. So I definitely think there's a balance. And this is why it's such a nuanced conversation that sometimes is frustrating, Hope, because the people who are, let's say, for a particular service will say, hey, let me tell you about all the stories of why this should work. And then the people who are against this particular service will say, well, let me show you this part of the data that says it doesn't. And then we're just stuck in this space. And then the other thing that happens is statistics rarely apply to the individual. You know, it's kind of, I always give it when I give like that skydiving question, like, would you go skydiving? I could say, hey, 95% of people who go skydiving at this part, their chute always opens and it's the greatest experience of their life. But that 5% whose chute didn't open, they don't care about your 95%. I was a part of the 5 that didn't, you know? So statistics don't apply to the individual. You definitely have to have a balance. So the question is, what would happen if we focused on one instead of the other? I think our systems are far too complex to frame it in that way. I think we need to do both, Hope. And I know that might be kind of not a definitive answer, but I don't know how to necessarily give you a definitive one on this type of question.
Well, and I don't think you're wrong. I think it goes back to that question, should we write case notes for the auditor or the client? Well, we have to do both, because if we write it for the auditor, but we fail to serve the client, we're failing to serve the client. If we write it for the client, but we fail to meet the needs in the eyes of the auditor, then we may not have a program for the client. So for this, I think there's a lot of potential answers. But if we think of success rate, and that success rate statistics need to be at least 85%, but they're currently at 40%, and we really focus on strength-based support, and we can increase it from 40 to 50, then I think we're going in the right direction. But it does start, you know, we have to have a goal. And that's where statistics, I think, help us. Is we need to, there are guideposts, right? Like, we can be out in the field doing wonderful work every day, but if we don't have any kind of navigation system, we're just taking hits where we take hits, taking wins where we take wins, taking losses where we take losses, without any kind of navigation. But if we see that we've brought success rate from 40 to 44%, we're doing something right. Let's keep going in that direction. So I think they work together. I think we need both. Statistics tell us what we're doing right. Statistics tell us what we could do better. They really are. And I am more of a heart person. I like the story. But I have learned over the period of the last probably decade that you really need to appeal to both the data person and the story person, the heart person. And you need to be able to tell both stories, the data, the heart, and you need the statistics to drive your progress. If you keep doing the same thing, but the statistics don't move or they go down, then you need to change course. If you're doing something and the statistics are going up in a good direction, then you know you're in the right direction. So it's something to guide us, I believe. And I know that is kind of vague, because sometimes there's just not statistics, right, available for that internal change. You have to wait until the external shows up. So I understand both sides of this question.
Yeah, I agree, Hope. And I like the leadership luncheon is a great example. You know, there was no statistic that said we should do this idea. And there was I don't even know if there was necessarily a statistic that said the idea was a good one. Now you can make inferences and say, okay, because we did this helped this outcome, but we're really just hoping, you know. I mean, I think the basic thing with this is we got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, why can't you do both? Why can't we create a leadership luncheon because we believe the feeling and the confidence it could instill and inspire our youth, while also saying, hey, let's look at our recidivism rate and do something about that too. Like, why can't we do both things? Right. It really bugs me when we have to have this either or argument with any of these things, because then they frame it in a way that you have to pick one of these directions, and one of these directions is the right direction, which then says we can just completely ignore the other one, which is nonsense. So yeah, Hope. Look, I like this segment. Hope, I think we need to do this again, but perhaps not give AI as much autonomy on some of the vagueness of these questions. Maybe we can be a little more targeted next time. But this was a last second, episode we put together. But I really enjoyed this, Hope. I think we got a segment here that we can use moving forward.
I liked it because it made me think about things that maybe I haven't thought about for a while. And it dives a little deeper into our experiences and our thoughts. And I also think some of what we were able to share for those in the service field, I think some of these answers might be really good at helping just in general their day-to-day support services. And that's my opinion, but I'd be interested to know, anybody watching or watching after it's been posted, were any of these questions helpful for you? Did you receive any answers that motivated or inspired you or made you think just a little bit different? And then also, what questions would you have asked us if you had the opportunity? Because I personally would love to hear your questions and see if we can help you in that direction. So I really liked this. I like this a lot. I think it can cover all of the topics that we usually cover, while also kind of getting into the heart of our more personal and professional experiences and how they overlap.
Yeah, and I think maybe even bringing on some guests and putting them through the wheel too, so we can get some real organic, authentic responses. I think that might be fun. So yeah, Hope, let's do it. Hope, as always, I appreciate you for being on the Aware News Network, asking why and requiring everyone. Again, you were able to join us on the fly without much prep. You know, I always appreciate that, but there really is no other way. We've been doing that forever. And then next week, we are going to have a special guest, the VP, the VIP. She knows who she is, to help us celebrate and reflect on one of our favorite programs that we've ever worked for, Project Bridge. And if there are any other Project Bridge team members that want to be a part of that conversation, reach out to me and we will make it happen. Final thoughts from you, Hope?
Next Friday at noon, right, Curtis? Are we doing noon?
Next Friday at noon.
Okay. I'm very excited. There is not a program in this world or a group of people that I love and treasure more than the Eckerd Connects team. So I would love, if you are out there, I would love to have you next Friday and have you be a part of that. So that's all I have for this week. I hope everybody has a really wonderful and safe weekend. And Curtis, is next Friday 4th of July?
It is.
Okay.
We'll figure that out, Hope. Don't you worry.
Okay. All right. I just realized we've got a holiday.
That conversation is going to be fireworks.
When you work for yourself, you don't get the day off. So you just keep going. So I forget. So
you just missed my fireworks joke. So that's okay.
I caught it.
Oh, you ignored it. All right. I appreciate that, Hope. All right, everybody. We will see you soon. Don't be strangers. Stop scrolling past this thing and not commenting. I see you. I'm watching you. Go ahead and leave a comment, even if you're watching after the live. And we will see each other next Friday at 12. Fireworks. Bye, Hope.
Bye.
What if we helped people who help people? Speak4mc provides training, motivational talks, personal reflections on parenting, resilience, and working through adversity. Welcome to Speak for Maggie's Change. Hit that subscribe button.